Reparations March. We are seeking reparations for the injustice that has been done to our ancestors, but has never stopped and continues to do.
So why should you come out and join us on the march on the 1st of August? The 1st of August is actually known as Emancipation Day. It is commemorated as a public holiday in the Caribbean and in other colonies, former colonies of Britain that have African diaspora populations. So we have reclaimed this day as Reparations Day. That is, we in the Afrikan Emancipation Day Reparations March Committee. And this year's theme is so key about your involvement. Nothing about us without us. Actualizing the reparatory justice change we envision. Why is it that we have chosen this theme? It's really a call to action for our people to come out and showcase their own reparations activism, programs, solutions that you have been working on all year round. This is indeed one of the aims, in fact the 5th aim of the Reparations March, and you can find the other aims on our website, which is www.reparationsmarch.org. We're also advocating this theme this year of nothing about us without us, actualizing the reparatory justice change that we envisage, because we are sending a strong message to the supposed government in waiting, especially under the leadership of the British Labour Party, that they should not really be coming up with proposals such as the one for a slavery educational trust without consulting us, the people, African heritage communities who have been resisting the maangamizi, which is a key Swahili term for the African Holocaust and continuum of chattel, colonial and neo-colonial enslavement. Also, many of our people who are residing here in the UK, but we have family connections in the Caribbean, in Africa, and in other places in the world. We have been actively struggling for reparatory justice since the mid-1700s in the UK. And there is a wealth of knowledge that we have amassed around the change that we are seeking to bring about. So what we are saying to you is consult with our communities. We already have ideas about what we want, and we are actively working on those solutions. We're also saying this as a response to the official government response that we received from Lord Ahmad, Minister of the United Nations and the Commonwealth, and their standard response not only to Caribbean governments, but also to us we are a constituency in our own right. But they are saying that reparations is not the answer. At the same time they are telling us that reparations is not the answer, we recently discovered that up until 2015, that we in Britain, taxpayers in Britain, and especially African heritage communities in Britain, however we self-define, were being forced to pay taxes that went off to paying the debt that was accrued by the 1833 Abolition of Slavery Act, which legislated that our enslavers would receive compensation and we would receive nothing. This is an injustice and a travesty. And when we march, we are also sending a strong message that we have not forgotten and that we will honor the sacrifices and struggles of our foreparents who didn't allow their generations to forget either. We are also marching because as a community, this is a visible display of our movement taking to the streets. And we have to also be the change that we wish to see. We have to do something to intervene in the increased criminalization of our young people, taking the best of our young, denying us an opportunity to reproduce ourselves and to develop thriving communities. And our young people who, because the legacies of enslavement and the maangamizi have not been addressed, are actually resorting to self-on-self annihilation in service of white supremacy, racism and global domination. We are also marching to send a strong message of our, disagreement with the deportations, and to show solidarity with the the immigration amnesty campaigns, and also the anti-deportation campaigns, in particular, that are affecting not only the so-called Windrush generation, but many generations of African heritage communities living in the UK today. Now, some of the key principles that we are affirming by marching is our solidarity and our unity. There's a big call for unity in our community. On the 1st of August is a day where many of our people are coming together in support of this intergenerational, transnational, and actual intercultural struggle for reparatory justice. The key principles that we are asserting is that African agency and self-determination are key in terms of who speaks for us and who represents our communities. We are not represented by mainstream British political parties, and so the movement is a demonstration of our autonomous community voices. It is a display of the organising work that happens all year round that is about the solutions. It's also important to note that our claims for reparations and our case is actually intergenerational. And so we are continuing a legacy that was begun by our ancestors and our foreparents. We also march in recognition that we have a global organising framework, and the UK ISMA, the International Social Movement for African Reparations, is just a part of that whole. And the march is an annual activity of the UK Reparations Movement for African People. We are marching to amplify the voices and to show solidarity and support for those who are in continued resistance to the Mangamizi of today. It's not just about remembering and honouring our ancestors, it's about showing support for those whose lives are being taken today, those who are being killed because they are daring to invent the future. We are marching because it's important that we prioritise mobilising our individual and collective community power to effect the kind of changes that we wish to see. Agency is key here, because a lot of the focus is on what other people owe us. But by choosing this theme, we are reminding ourselves that actually a key part of reparations has to result in the transformation of the group that have been harmed, so that we can actually be self-affirming and we can assert our own dignity as human beings in the world. So this is a march of a difference. We have been marching for 5 years, that is true, but the specific aims came in 2015. We've been marching since 2014, and we have specific aims, and also there is a partnership with the Stop the Mangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. And this year, the focus is on us. So I just want to tell you some of the things that we have actually achieved, because there are many out there who are constantly critiquing and challenging us and saying, well, we are not achieving anything. Why are we marching? So some of the achievements are mind repairs. The process of physically taking to the streets, amplifying our voices of resistance, not only in the UK, but beyond the UK, is actually promoting the fact that we have a movement here. It's promoting the messages and the aims of the movement. And some of the mind repairs are, if you like, transforming the consciousness of many of our people that reparations is not just about money. It's not just about compensation. It's actually wider than that. It's also about the redistribution of the ill-gotten gains of the Mangamizi, which are still continuing today. Total wealth redistribution. It's about stopping the Mangamizi so that we can build the alternative world, the post-reparations global order. And we are actually supporting the campaigns for the bringing about of Ma'at Ubuntu Man. And that is actually a Pan-African superstate that includes all of us as African people, whether we live in the UK, whether we live in the so-called Americas, whether we live in the Caribbean, or of course our people on the continent, a homeland. We have the right to belong to our homeland and to benefit from our homeland. It's also about building community. It is about going beyond the atomization of our communities, which impacts on our ability to empower ourselves and to also enforce our will and have other groups respect and recognize us. So we are building African heritage communities for national self-determination as specific communities that are an amalgamation of all of the different existing ethnic and national communities that we belong to. But we recognize that because all of us have gone through similar journeys, that we have to repair collectively and fashion a global identity. We are also countering Afrophobia. That has been a key outcome and goal, if you like, or if you like, achievement of our marching so far. We have been highlighting the damage that has been done, the harm that has been caused, the Mangamizi crimes, not only in terms of individual crimes against us, but crimes to our collective, crimes that affect our ability to relate and see each other as one people and one community. We are also asserting an African personality and calling for and being the change that we want to see in terms of developing new paradigms of development. Another, I think, key if you like, achievement of marching that people will not fully recognize is that we're seeing much more promotion and awareness in relation to the Do for Self initiatives. Now, Do for Self is very common in our communities, but many of those who have been advocating Do for Self don't necessarily link it to reparations or reparatory justice. And now we are bringing together all those constituencies who are advocating that none but ourselves can also repair ourselves and heal and restore ourselves. We are also strengthening our global African family relationships in building the ISMA, the International Social Movement for African Reparations. And it's important that you know that when we march on the 1st of August, there are many solidarity actions that take place around the world, in particular in Africa and the Caribbean, in alliance with what we are doing. So I want to specially recognize Vazoba, who organized the Sankofa Pan-African Reparatory Justice Libation Ceremony in Ghana, the Over Herero Genocide Foundation, who joined us on the march, and we had a keynote speaker, Ushua Munjange from the Over Herero Genocide Foundation, the Landless Peoples Movement, of course, Rastafari in the community, and we want to especially hail up the Bob Ashanti, who continually support the march, and outreach is being done there, linking with committees and commissions for reparations in the Caribbean, such as the National Commission on Reparations in Jamaica, and also the Guyana Reparations Committee, links with the Free Africa, Free Bagbo campaign, many of those who are struggling to transform their societies and communities, such as the Togo Diaspora for Change, the Beto Anti-Colonial Borders resistance campaigns, who are resisting, if you like, the 1884-1885 Berlin Consensus that carved off Africa according to European interests. We are also, if you like, taking credit in terms of the march for some of the strengthening that is happening of the connections that the Stop the Mangamizi campaign in particular has been making with individual deaths in custody family campaigns. And I want to particularly mention the Justice for Kingsley Burrell campaign in this regard. We have been working with the Stop the Mangamizi campaign. That itself is a key achievement to kind of help strengthen our campaigning focus, our goals and our intentions. And we have been advocating and championing an approach to lobbying towards the establishment of the All-Party Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry for Truth and Reparatory Justice, which is known as the APSI charge. And we are in this regard promoting a qualitatively different community self-empowering advocacy, where we no longer just turn up to Parliament without having done the groundwork in mobilising our community constituencies and support on the ground, so that when we do go into Houses of Parliament and lobby, that we come behind us with our community strength. A key achievement also is some of the alliances that we have been making and strengthening global justice connections in terms of building what is known as the People's Reparations International movement. So we focus a lot on the African movement, whether it's our people in the Caribbean, in so-called Americas, or in Europe, or anywhere else that we are. But there are other reparation struggles who are also struggling to transform the world. And there are some points of alliances that we have been forming, such as the development of the international network of scholars and activists for African reparations. There are other constituencies out there who are working in particular, say, with church groupings, faith groupings, such as the Movement for Justice and Reconciliation. We have been working with organizations such as Jubilee Debt Campaign and scholar activists who are investigating aspects of the Mangamizi in terms of corporate crime and the continued, if you like, extraction of wealth that is happening today. These are significant achievements in terms of amplifying our voices and our messages around being the change and actualizing the change that we want to bring about. We've also been galvanizing Windrush agitation towards its relevance to Pan-African reparations in particular, because a lot of the narratives that were initially coming out about Windrush, and are still there in fact, is the right of our people to a British citizenship and identity. But we have been, through our own agitations and constructive critique and dialogue with many of those who are working and struggling to secure justice in terms of the Windrush movement. It's about taking our people beyond the notion of just Britishness, which is actually a contested identity. The right to an identity and a global identity is what our people have. African heritage communities, more so than any other people, because we were trafficked from our homeland, shipped and transported to many different parts of the world. And so we actually have a right to belong in so many places, and our identity must go beyond the existing borders. And we have a right to benefit from the wealth and resources of Africa today and be consulted on how those resources are utilized. If we think about even what's happening with Windrush, we have to recognize that the crime of the Windrush, it was an aspect of the Mangamizi. So bringing our people from the Caribbean to work to rebuild post so-called Second World War Britain was a crime in itself. Because what our people faced here was hell. There's a narrative that we helped to build Britain and that we all did well, but actually that narrative of the hell that we faced, our struggles for justice, our struggles against oppression, racism and our dehumanization are what we are asserting must be told. So moving on, it's important now to just share with you a little bit about what happens on the march. What can you expect? We're expecting you to come along with your families, with your friends, with your work colleagues, with those who are part of your various communities of interest. And an outline of the day is something like this. We begin in Windrush Square in Brixton, how appropriate. And we have libations and prayers, and if you like, our spiritual opening to give us that strength to continue the mission of our foreparents and our ancestors. We rally at Windrush Square around 9 a.m. on the 1st of August, which is a Wednesday this year. We then march from Brixton to Parliament Square around midday, but of course the programme will be coming out closer to the time. When we get to Parliament Square, we have a 3-minute silence in terms of African remembrance and showing solidarity with those who also commemorate African Remembrance Day on the 1st of August. We remember and honour the contributions and sacrifices of our ancestors and our foreparents who struggled and resisted every aspect of the brutality that we face in every generation since the beginning of African chattel enslavement. We then have something known as the POPSAR at Parliament Square, which is the People's Open Parliamentary Session on African reparations. A big deal is made of the fact that the Parliament, Westminster Houses of Parliament, is closed. But we as African heritage communities seize back the power to define and narrate for ourselves, and we declare that we have our own parliamentary session. In a time when there is so much gentrification, where we are being prevented from actually congregating in public spaces, expressing ourselves, it's important for us to reclaim that space and assert our counter narratives in what is known as the heart of what the Europeans often refer to as the mother of parliaments. We then hand in the famous Stop the Maangamizi, We Charge Genocide Ecocide petition, which is represented very visually in this colourful postcard to MPs, which is a specific postcard campaign. There is then an address at Parliament Square afterwards, where we often have an international guest speaker that comes and represents other constituencies of reparations organising and campaigning around the world. We then return to Windrush Square, where we have a closing evening rally featuring many speakers and edutainment messages that actually put the messages of the day in popular format. So the motion that we will be debating at this year's People's Open Parliamentary Session on African Reparations, which is the POPSAR, is very much in keeping with the overall theme of the march. Nothing about us without us, actualising the reparatory justice change that we envisage. The motion to be debated is, be it resolved, that the Reparations March as a form of reparatory justice street protest is being made ineffective due to insufficient highlighting between and during the annual marches of the self-repair efforts we are making. Why have we chosen this motion? Because it is true that there are an increasing amount of people who are challenging and critiquing the impact of the march. What is the point of marching? What are we achieving? And we wanted to invite a space for those who are, if you like, opposed to marching to also come and state their view before our communities. At the same time, there are many who have been working on reparations all year round. They have programs, educational programs, enterprise programs, healthcare programs that they have been developing, so that when that day comes, when we have to be able to say, what is it that we want? We already are coming with our PEMPAMSIE, African Heritage Community Self-Repairs Plan. And so those people who are working on the initiatives, who are doing for self, also want to be able to showcase and inform the rest of our communities about what work they have been engaged in. So that is the importance of the POPSAR motion and the topic. And we recognise that despite the fact that every year the African Emancipation Day Reparations March Committee, and indeed its partner campaign, the Stop the Maangamizi, We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign, gives guidance on how the campaign for reparations and how the movement, the ISMA, can be strengthened. And we also give suggestions for taking action, such as shutting down Maangamizi crime scenes, shutting down mines, corporations, taking back our resources. That's for those who want to take the direct action. There are also those who feel that lobbying is the way forward in terms of lobbying elected officials to take action to initiate the APSITAJ, which is the All-Party Parliamentary Commission for Truth and Reparatory Justice, or lobbying elected officials to support our own community self-repairs initiatives, programs and services that we are working on locally, nationally and internationally. We also give guidance around creatively using the Stop the Mangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide petition so that we can link all of the issues that we are working on in terms of campaigning for change and to end injustice, oppression, that we link it back to what happened to our foreparents. We see it as part of a continuum of Mangamizi. And we have been doing all of this, but yet there are still many who are detractors. And so we are inviting those people to also come and have their say, because they also help us strengthen our advocacy, look again at what we're doing, question and challenge ourselves around the effectiveness and the impact of our actions. So that is the key thing about the POPSAR. I'd like to say something now about perhaps how you can get involved. So the march has 9 blocks. This is a key aspect of how you can be involved. The 9 blocks are the Mokwele Konso Ancestors Block, the Pamoja Family and Community Block, the Ujamaa Global African Family Block, the Fiancra Repatriation and Rematriation Block, the Imani Interfaith Block, the Kumba Artistic and Creativity Block, the Sankofa Soafo Students Block, the Ujima Trade Unionist Block, and the Ubuntu Non-African Allies blocks. Now, what these blocks are, they are really year-round mobilizing and organizing constituencies of different interest groups who are working on reparations or who have an interest in reparations in terms of their existing campaigns, programs and services. And there are many different people doing outreach, seeking to make the links so that different campaigns can begin linking what they're doing to reparations, linking what they're doing to Mangamizi resistance and so forth. How else can you be involved? So apart from helping us build the blocks, if you want to come forward to help coordinate the blocks, you are very, very welcome. But we are inviting you and would like you in particular to come on the march with banners and placards emphasizing Mangamizi resistance campaigns that you're engaged in, promoting the various community self-repair initiatives that you are engaged in that require support, that you also want to publicize and make it be known that this is the work that you're doing. So it's not that we don't have answers. Remember our theme, actualizing the reparatory justice change that we envision, nothing about us without us. We are inviting those of you who are, for instance, involved in various Stop the Killing, deaths in custody, anti-violence campaigns, immigration amnesty and anti-deportation campaigns, various country, community, regional and international reparations campaigns, struggles and movements. You can also get involved by helping with outreach. Outreach has to be like when you see various religious communities, and we know who, on the street, basically speaking to our people, handing out tracts and flyers, making reparations relevant to everyday issues. Reparations can no longer be seen as something that a few activists or even a movement that calls itself that has to go and win, or a fight that they wage elsewhere and we sit back and benefit. Reparations is relevant to each and every one of you watching this video. There are Mangamizi legacy issues that we're dealing with individually, in our families, in our communities, in our homes, in our workplaces, even in our places of recreation, our places of fellowship and worship. And so this is about you. This is about your family line. This is about what you are entitled to. And what we're asking you to do is, those of you who are out there making change, being the change in our communities, join join us on the march, showcase what you are doing. Because when we all come together and we showcase what we are doing, our people themselves get to see the strength of what we're doing. We can see the various initiatives, programs, services that we didn't even know were happening, even here in the UK, let alone what's been going on internationally in Africa, in the Caribbean, and in other places of the so-called Americas where our people reside. It's important that those of you who want to assist, you can volunteer, for instance, with stewarding, with security, for first aid. You can be sharing information about the march, promoting what the march is about, and its partner campaign, the Stop the Mangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. Make a note of this flyer. The flyer has so much information on it, that is true, but this year we have the aims of the march, and we also have the aims of the Stop the Mangamizi campaign. There's also lots of information about what you can be doing to support the march in between the marches. So this is something that every household should have. We should use it as a discussion piece, a tool to educate not only our families, those that we come into contact with, people in our workplaces, the wider community at large. And finally, of course, you can make a donation. Whether people recognizing it or not, us marching is not just about some people, thousands of people marching from Windrush Square to Parliament Square and handing in a petition at number 10 Downing Street. It costs us money to march. It costs us money in terms of licenses, both at Windrush Square, at Parliament Square, all the equipment that we need so that people can be heard effectively, the resourcing of the day in terms of the refreshments that are provided to volunteers, and many other administration costs in terms of publicity and promotion. A lot of issues come up about our publicity and promotion, but actually, do people know how much it costs us a lot of money to keep printing flyers that we really want people to read, and not only read, share it with someone, share the information online, because the mass media are not necessarily reporting what we're doing. We are thankful and grateful to our independent community media who have been actually promoting the march, filming, including this film that's being done now, and we're very grateful for that, because otherwise this is the only way that we can actually let ourselves know, not just those of us living here in the UK, but our families, our community members, all African heritage communities all around the world, about what is happening here in Britain and the march that we are engaging in on the 1st of August. So I hope that clarifies for you why we march on the 1st of August, what it is that we've been achieving so far, but also how you can be involved, how the issues and campaigns, programs and services that you are developing that are actually about community self-repairs are contributing to the overall change that we wish to bring about. So we hope to see you on the 1st.
Rise up, you mighty people! Join up, rise up, you mighty people! Rise up and take a stance! Rise up, you mighty people, and take a stance!